Folks, when you look at this world, whether it's stories of human cruelty, or maybe it's things you see across happening in history, maybe it's something even happening in your own home. Have you ever stopped and you just ask yourself, why is the world so cruel? Everyone that I've talked to, they say that they want to be a good person. They want to be remembered as a good person. This shared desire, this common human desire to be a good person is one of the reasons why so many people think that humans are basically good. And so again, I ask, why is the world so cruel? And it's not just the stuff we see happening on the news. I'm talking about things in our own lives all around us, whether it's greed or selfishness or jealousy, broken promises, broken trust, broken families. Is this stuff not happening all the time, all around, every day by people like you and me who say that they want to be a good person? And it's weird, isn't it? People often hurt themselves and others, even though they know that it's hurtful. They don't like that it's hurtful, but they keep doing it. We've actually reached a point in human history when it has become easy to imagine that at some point in the near future, we're all going to kill ourselves by hoarding resources and launching missiles at each other. Probably every one of you in this room has had a thought like that. I had a former pastor who told of how he had this toddler of his started hitting people, just throwing punches as toddlers often do. And he looked at his congregation wide-eyed. He said, that was never modeled in our home. People are just born this way. And as we grow up, we are taught to be generous and compassionate, to say please and I'm sorry, and to resist violence and so forth. You'd think that intrinsically good people would have to learn how to be selfish and violent. No, we figure that out before we even learn to mirror a mother's smile. Whatever we're looking at here, it would have to be nasty. It's powerful. We know that the answer we're looking for, it's subtle. It runs deep in the human person. We all see the evil around us, and we also find that it goes all the way back to our time of birth. It's not physical. It's not mental either. It's a spiritual problem. And I think the answer we've been looking for is brutally obvious, but it's ignored or it's denied because we don't like it. The problem of this world, it's a dark spiritual reality that poisons us at birth and affects us every time we submit to its rule. The Bible has a word for this. The word is sin. And as much as we may like to point out this dark reality in other people, we don't really understand sin until we see those fingers pointing back at ourselves. I'm not trying to degrade or embarrass or stay away from people that I don't like. I'm trying to diagnose us, as a doctor would when she notices something fatal in the lifeblood of her patient. And as hard as this may be to stomach, I find that the Bible's description of sin in the human person is the most sobering, honest, accurate description that I've ever seen. You get 3 chapters into the first book of the Bible, and already sin is off and running. I mean, chapter 1, God makes the world. He calls it good. Hooray! Chapter 3, Adam and Eve sin by eating from the forbidden tree. Chapter 4, Adam and Eve's son kills his own brother. That escalated quickly. In reading on, it doesn't ever seem to let up. You even get Paul in the book of Romans in the New Testament. He says, what I want to do, I don't do. What I don't want to do, I do. What's wrong with me? Sin is an immensely dangerous reality, not just because of all the horrible things it produces in this world. It's dangerous because of how it makes us think that it doesn't really exist. Or if it does exist, it doesn't exist in me. But even if it does exist in me, it's not that big of a deal. And even if it was a big deal, there are other people doing worse things out there. And besides the point, society made me this way, so I'm not to blame. We just don't see this in ourselves. Even in the Nuremberg trials, which were held against the Nazi defendants after World War II, these people who were running concentration camps, shooting people in the face and leading them into gas chambers, they tried to cast the blame on everyone else but themselves. First World War, 15 million. Russian Civil War, 9 million. Stalin in the Soviet Union, 20 million. World War II, 55 million. It's like no amount of contrary evidence is ever going to change man's grand, unashamed, self-determined innocence. Snap out of it. Some of you listening here might even be reeling because I haven't weighed in on all the good things that this world has done and produced. But the reason that I'm not spending much time there is because this isn't a competition. I'm not here to convince you that we do more bad things than good. I'm trying to show you it goes deeper. Because even if you are really good at being good, Jesus looked at the religious leaders of his day and he called them whitewashed tombs. Think about that. You look great on the outside, cleaned up, real nice. There's death on the inside. That was a diagnosis that Jesus gave us. And when I look at this world, it's really starting to make sense. And this is why, for the past 2,000 years, despite challenges and persecutions, God's people have joyfully proclaimed the most stunning and liberating message that this world could ever hear. We call it the gospel. And the gospel means good news. It's simply this, that God so loved this world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. It's not complicated, but it's not going to click until you understand sin. When you truly understand sin, that's when our pointing fingers go back on us. And that is when God takes our hand, he says, yes, I know, but he redirects our hands to point straight to the cross. And so my question for you is, what do you make of the cross? Because the reality is, we may be born into sin, but we don't have to die there.